Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So this is going to be a tough story, but it's important to share with you guys in case you haven't heard any of this. We all laugh, we laugh at this Q loon nonsense. We laugh at the insanity of the Mike Lindells of the world, but there are some very terrifying real world consequences that we need to be aware of and we need to face. We saw some of that play out on January 6th, but there are still things going on. There are stories that are coming out about deadly, truly heartbreaking consequences. And I'm not going to go into the explicit details because it's really just too horrific. But within a couple days of each other, two really extremely disturbing stories broke, and they're related to right-wing conspiracy theories and the Trump obsession on the right. So the first story was about Matthew Coleman. He's a 40-year-old man. He's from Santa Barbara, California. Last week, he abducted his 2-year-old son and his 10-month-old daughter. He took them to Mexico and he murdered them. Coleman then confessed to the murders and he waived his Miranda rights. He told the authorities that he had to kill these children because he was trying to save the world. He claimed that he had been enlightened by QAnon and the Illuminati, and he received visions and signs that told him that his wife possessed serpent DNA and that she had passed that serpent DNA onto their children. Now, after learning of that devastating story, another story broke about a 22-year-old man named Jake Davison, who allegedly murdered 5 people, including his own mother and a 3-year-old child. And then he took his own life. Now, that tragedy occurred in Britain, but Davison claimed that he was from Arizona, and his Facebook page was just filled with pro-Trump and QAnon related posts. In one of his posts, he wrote in part, quote, "The government is deeply flawed. There are many pedophiles and even reported devil worshipers, people that sell us out to foreign countries." So Davison also liked many conservative US political posts on Facebook, and he followed the Facebook pages of Trump, his children, Fox News, Breitbart, the NRA, Ted Cruz, and many others here in the US. So I know these stories are tough. I know this is, it was tough for even me to say it out loud. And I can't even fathom like the overwhelming grief that these families of the victims are suffering. But I think that we have to recognize the moment we're living in. We have to come to grips with the fact that a certain portion of the American population, maybe even throughout the world, may have lost their minds.
That truly seems to be the case. You still have people hanging on, like Arizona, of course, they're doing the recount that we have talked about before. Mm-hmm. And people really, truly believe that Trump is coming back. Not running again in 2024. He's going to get reinstalled in a sense as president during this, 4-year or 8-year tenure that we're in. And people that are believing that and going so far off the deep end in a sense, and it's causing them to not make rational decisions. And in fact, like you mentioned, the 2 cases there where unfortunately lives were lost. And that just goes to show you how deep the rabbit hole can run and how it can affect the person's mental capacity.
Yeah. I have to wonder what, and maybe we'll hear more as the weeks go on, because these just happened last week, but what their mental state was like before they were exposed to QAnon. Were these people that their friends and family, like I shared with you, I have a family member who's gone down the QAnon rabbit hole, who was very successful in business, had his own company, made a lot of money, and everything's just gone off the rails for him. I would have never believed that he would be someone who would be taken in, sucked in by this insanity. So I just wonder about these people. Like, were they always, like the one guy, he was 22. He had a history of, I guess he had assaulted his father a couple weeks before, killing his mother and all these other people.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a history of misogyny. Like, he would make YouTube videos just railing on women, even basically making excuses for sexual assault, saying that, women don't pay attention to average looking men. And so like, that was a reason why it's okay to sexually assault them.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he said he was a virgin, at 22, he had never had a relationship, and basically put women down all the time on his YouTube channel from the way the article read. But this other guy was 40 years old. He was married. He was a surf instructor. He, had 2 children. I mean, how do you get to that stage in life and you're that unstable, seemingly, that you would literally take the lives of your own children? Or was it this QAnon? I mean, was he, I would love to talk to like a psychologist to figure out, are these people predisposed to conspiracy theories and to losing their minds, like is what it seems? Or really, is it just like hearing this stuff over and over again? Were they brainwashed?
That's the interesting question. I mean, who knows? I mean, I guess family members could tell how they were prior to, the Trump administration, throughout his term in office and, leading up to the election. Or was it just the after effect from the loss in the election that triggered something in these people? That's a very valid question. And I like to know as well.
Well, and and beyond Donald Trump, I mean, we have to really consider this whole QAnon thing.
Yes.
And here's my thing. I'm totally against censorship. I think that it always comes back to bite the people who want it. I think that anything out of the mainstream is going to end up being censored once you go down, that you start down that slippery slope. So unless someone is inciting violence, I don't believe in censorship. But clearly, this QAnon stuff is in an indirect way inciting violence. So to me, I don't know if the right answer is the authorities starting to investigate the whole QAnon thing, or if just the families, at least. If I was a family member of one of these victims, I said this the other day when these stories broke on Twitter, that I would make it my mission. Like, I would dedicate every moment of every day to my dying breath to destroy the person or people behind QAnon, because they literally were, even maybe not a direct, but an indirect cause of me losing my children or a loved one.
Yeah. That's tough. Like you mentioned, I agree with you there that I'm against censorship unless violence is involved too. If you're trying to incite violence, riots, and the like. But I don't know, how do people get so caught up in something? I mean, it's merely opinions, and I guess from there, people that believe the same things form tribes or communities, and I don't know how you get to that point, especially like you said, harming your own children or your parents, or having certain beliefs about women. How do you get to that point where you're acting out just because of something that you believe, that you heard?
Well, I mean, but with QAnon, they present the information as if it's fact. So it's not like, oh, it's somebody's opinion. They believe. And I've never looked at a QAnon or Q post or anything like that, but from what I've seen in documentaries and what I've read, they present it as if, Q is supposedly an insider, someone who works in the government and knows what's really going on, and this person is exposing it.
But as an individual, where does your rationale, reasoning, or even research come into play before you just jump on board and start, oh, well, this person they must know they work inside of something. I mean,
right.
I get blasted with the same information anybody else does 24/7, where it's coming at you. I guess I have a different filter in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
well, that actually brings up a really good point, because then we have to ask, how culpable are social media channels? Because as you and I know, what we look at online is then fed with more of the same content.
That's true.
So if you're looking at, the algorithms are set up in a way that if you're looking at Q content, if you're looking at conspiracy theories and right-wing lunacy, conspiracy BS, they're going to keep feeding you that kind of content because it makes more money.
Yep, retargeting.
The longer they can keep you on their site, the more revenue they're bringing in from advertisers. And so there's a financial incentive to keep people headed down these rabbit holes. But again, it's like a slippery slope. And like you said, where does personal responsibility, personal culpability come into it? And how many of these people, like I said previously, are already not, 100% like, I don't want to say like, I guess you would say mentally healthy,
right.
Emotionally and mentally healthy, versus how many of them just were fed so much of this content and they thought, well, gosh, if it's everywhere, if I keep seeing it and I'm getting it from so many different sources, it must be true. and it kind of led them off a ledge, because if you truly believe, I mean, there are child sex trafficking rings out there. That is a real thing that exists in the world. And so if you believe that your government leaders, that your, intelligence agencies of your country are pulling the strings and covering for some of these people, which isn't 100% far-fetched given what we know about Jeffrey Epstein and how many decades he was able to keep going with his child sex trafficking and his perversion, and that there were clearly people covering it up, because how else would you get away with it for so long on multiple continents? So I mean, it's almost like the person behind Q, which again, a lot of people believe it's Ron Watkins, who helped his father run 4chan, and now it's 8kun. The person or people behind Q, they did what great liars do. They take a grain of truth and then they fabricate a lie around that little grain of truth. And because it does have that grain of truth, it's easier to believe. So, that's where I would start if I was one of these family members. I mean, of course, you have to grieve and you have to, do what you can to pull yourself together. I don't even know how you do that. Because I mean, this poor woman, she said, the wife of this 40-year-old that took his kids and murdered them, she said they were they were going on a camping trip together. Like the family was getting ready to go camping. And then he literally just disappeared with the kids. And she was freaking out because he didn't even have car seats for either of them. And he didn't say where he was going. He literally just took off. And the only way they tracked him down was the police had her use the Find My Phone app. And they found that he was in Mexico. And she's like, what the hell is going on? Because they live in, the middle of California. And next thing they know, he's coming back through the border and they pulled him over because they were keeping an eye out for him, and he didn't have the kids with him, and he wasn't answering her messages, or I just don't get it. I don't know how you do that to a stranger, let alone your own child. Like how you're pushed that far mentally.
Yeah, it's unexplainable.
Yeah.
Unexplainable.
Now, and the guy in Britain who killed the 5 people and then himself, he shot them. And here's the thing. This is one other thing that's like, not about this story, but, related gun wise. Britain has very stringent gun laws, unlike the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so, people might say gun lovers, which I'm a gun owner, but, I'm not a gun lover. And so people might say, oh, well, see, they had this shooting. But what came up in the story was that there's been no mass shooting on this scale. And remember, it was 6 people, including the perpetrator. They haven't had a mass shooting of that many people in Britain since 2010. Now compare that to here, where it's almost a daily occurrence.
Yeah, daily, weekly, monthly.
Yeah, and the reason is because they have to go through a multi-stage process to obtain a gun license in Britain. And then you have to renew it every 5 years. So clearly these laws work.
Yes.
But,
and I mean,
it's not that people don't have guns there. It's just they pay attention to who has guns.
Yeah, I'm in Arizona, and of course, as you know, we have some of the most lax gun laws in the country. I think Arizona and maybe Texas might be number 1. And it's open carry, open season, open whatever. Anybody can get their hands on a gun here because there's no registration required. If you go to purchase one from a firearms dealer, they do a background check. However, most people aren't buying from dealers. They're just buying them, from other people. And as I said, there's no registration. Online, yes, and the like. And I like to think most people are responsible with it, but it's so many shootings around here just because anybody can have access to a weapon at any given time because gun laws are so lax.
Yeah.
I at the same time, I do believe in Second Amendment rights as far as a person being able to bear arms as a responsible gun owner. Like you mentioned, being a gun owner and a gun loving, toting, whatever are 2 different things.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever I have to protect myself or my family, but I'm not running around brandishing weapons and trying to make a point or vilifying people, intimidating people and the like. I believe in a different segment, I talked about different brigades or convoys that were rolling around with pickup trucks with the flags. Yeah, they were bearing assault weapons also. So, I mean, this is Arizona though. So it doesn't come as a surprise. However, some people do see that as intimidation tactics.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Like you said in another segment, they're terrorists.
Yeah. And those are the same people that
flying political flags, brandishing weapons. That is intimidation. That is terrorism. That is using terror to force your point of view, your political beliefs on other people.
Yeah, well, welcome to Arizona. And you said the younger kid, the 22-year-old, happened to be from Arizona, although it took place in Britain, I think.
Yeah, they're questioning it though, because they say his accent seemed like it was legitimately from a part of Britain.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if maybe he moved there when he was very young and he just, picked up on the accent, and maybe he was born in Arizona and they moved to Britain when he was younger. I don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't have any of those details yet, but he claims that he was from Arizona, but then again, he obviously wasn't exactly a stable person. So I guess we can take that with a grain of salt and we'll find out more later. But yeah, he was very seemingly obsessed with American conservative politics for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it, seems like a lot of these guys, like this kid, they just have a chip on their shoulder. They're not happy. Their life isn't going the way they want. And rather than looking in the mirror and going, oh, hey, maybe it's me. Maybe it's because I'm not the most pleasant person to be around. Maybe I have an attitude. Instead, it's, no, I'm going to point the finger at everybody else for why I don't have what I think I deserve.
Yep. Personal responsibility is overrated nowadays.
Oh, yeah. And isn't the right, the conservatives, they're the party of personal responsibility. Isn't that what they always say?
Allegedly, right.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right. It's a cute tagline, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a great bumper sticker, but I guess that's all.
Right.
Yeah. So very, very tragic. And, the other thing is that I believe in privacy. I don't believe that government should automatically have access to your medical records and information about you on a personal level. But when it comes to a kid like this, who the family said they tried to get the police to come out, like I said, he physically attacked his father just weeks before this took place. And the family tried to get the cops to come out and do a wellness check and see what they could do to help him. And they said, oh, we can't do it. We're too backed up or something like that. So, this didn't obviously come on overnight. I guess we'll learn more as time goes on, but was it his gun? Was he the one who got the license for the gun? Was this reported before? Was he having issues for years before and nothing was done? Why would someone with a history of mental illness, just like in this country, why are you automatically given guns? I mean, we had a whole house full of guns growing up, and we called 911 on my father. I don't even know how many times. It was usually me who called because he was physically abusive with my mother and my older brother and threatening all of us with guns, threatening to shoot us while we were sleeping. They never took the guns. They did a couple of 3-day holds with him and then they let him right out. And then he was usually more pissed off than when he went in. But it's like, there's got to be changes. There has to be changes made.
Yes,
this
definitely.
is insane, the way we do things here.
Yeah, I don't have the right answer. I mean, like you said, that's a slippery slope, and it's got to tie in with a person's mental capacity, though, in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what the standard test would be or how do you determine that, but there's got to be a way.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way.
Well, I think clearly if you're if you're deemed a danger to yourself or someone else, you should not be allowed to have a weapon,
Oh, yeah.
That should be like the bare minimum. But, look at Japan. I mean, I have 2 girls that I took in, friends of my daughter, who are from Japan, and all of their family is back there. And I've talked to them about the gun laws there because they never have mass shootings. I'm not talking like rarely, never have mass shootings. They rarely have a one-off gun incident where one person shoots another person. It's so unheard of. It's like a major thing in their country, where here it's just, we've just become accustomed to it. But their gun laws are so strict. You have to go through all a different multitude of levels of checks before they'll grant you a license to own a gun. And then once a year, the police come to your home to make sure that the gun is safely stored, that other people can't get to it, that, it's crazy, the hoops that you have to jump through, but the proof is there. It works, and they do have a higher quality of living. I mean, they do offer, it's basically a democratic socialist country. You have free college education. You have free health care. I mean, the girl's grandfather was in the hospital for months. He didn't have to pay a dime.
Yeah.
You know, here, how many people go bankrupt because of medical bills, because of, or don't even get the help they need because they can't afford it, and they die because they have no health insurance. So, you know, people don't have the stress there that they have here.
Right. Yeah,
so
those things
helps.
they're definitely contributing factors. I mean, when you look, especially at, let's just say, gun violence in inner cities, for example, it becomes almost a survival of the fittest type thing because resources aren't available and stress levels are elevated. There are systems in place to hold certain people back from achieving certain things in life. So all those things accumulate and pile up, and people release that energy in the worst kind of way in inner cities, and that attributes to a lot of the violence that you see there. I know that for a fact from growing up in those areas. So yes, resources definitely make a huge difference. And then you see certain groups or demographics complaining about, well, that's socialist, but however, whenever their palms are getting greased, it's never a problem.
Right.
And I find that
or to fight the forever wars, we always have the money.
Oh wow.
Military industrial complex, we always have the money when it comes to, you know, handouts to big oil and big pharma. Oh yeah, they've always got the money.
If resources were allocated in a different kind of way, I mean, you could wipe out so much poverty and homelessness and people going to bed hungry in this country. It's just where their attention lies, and what they choose to cherry pick, what they choose to ignore. Yeah. Because ignoring the problems keeps things status quo, I really think. You don't want to change that.
And if you keep people desperate,
they
don't have the time, they don't have the bandwidth and the energy to actually pay attention to who's actually screwing them over.
Right.
And so you can keep the different factions in the country pointing the finger at each other.
Exactly.
And hating each other. Instead of looking at the ruling class, instead of looking at the billionaires who are making out like bandits, instead of looking at our government and the waste, and looking at our politicians who are getting their, you know, back scratched and making millions of dollars, whether public servants, you know.
You said it. I mean, as long as lower class, so to speak, are sitting there fighting each other, you're never going to turn and look at the real issue. You, like you said, you don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the energy. And I really think if people really just took a breath for a minute, I mean, and kind of put everything on pause and look at where they are, the factors that contributed to them get there, and what this government is really doing and where they're putting their resources. And if they mobilize and go in the right direction, the same direction, as opposed to fighting each other, maybe that's the point where the scales will begin to tip. But they'll come up with something next week to have everybody fighting each other.
Everybody again.
Like, they're starting to focus on us. Throw something down there to make them distract them. You know, so it's always a diversion tactic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And it's tough because there were things that Donald Trump said in 2015 when he was running for president that I agreed with, that made sense. But that's not who he was in reality.
Right.
You know, he didn't actually drain the swamp. He didn't actually take issue with those people that are causing all of this. So, if he had been that way, I mean, there were still a lot of things that I didn't disagree with him on, but him pointing the finger at the greed and the corruption, 100%, that was real. He just he was just a grifter who knew that's what people wanted to hear.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, you know, the only person who really meant it and who really would have taken issue with it was Bernie Sanders.
and see what happens time after time with that. So.
Yeah. Because those people who are making money are never going to allow him to get in a position where he can stop it, where he can change it, unless the people wake up, unless people start to pay attention and they realize that as long as we keep electing the Bidens of the world, the Hillary Clintons of the world, it's never going to change.
Right.
And to me, all these people talking about, socialism and communism and blah, 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 blah. Not that I'm all for communism, but I am a democratic socialist. I'm not a 100% socialist, but I consider myself, like Bernie Sanders, to be a democratic socialist. Where the government doesn't own everything, but they do use our tax dollars to help us. I have no problem paying taxes. I have no problem even paying more taxes than we already do, if it comes back to us, if it helps the people and those in need in our country, and not just going to the military industrial complex and big pharma and big oil and all of these people who want to have their palms greased. But all these people who use that as the boogeyman, socialism boogeyman. We've been doing capitalism for how many decades, how many centuries? It's not working. It's clearly not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this divide in the country. We wouldn't have people who are so desperate for change that they were willing to vote for the likes of Donald Trump.
Right.
So, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we're just insane. If we keep going down this capitalism road, we are just insane.
Well, that's what's profitable to the, other side, that you mentioned, the elite ruling class, so to speak. It's more profitable to them to keep us in the same situation because, in essence, we become slaves in a sense, especially debt slaves. You're born into this capitalist system and you never really get out of it. It's like a matrix in a sense, and you're trapped in it for life unless you're part of that class. You're going to be working. They're going to continue to implement certain changes. Like around here in Arizona, I notice how and they blame it on California. They blame it on Californians moving here. Exactly. They say too many Californians are moving here. That's why the prices are going up. It's gotten absolutely, it's going insane here with the real estate market right now. And they're blaming it on you Californians moving over here.
Everywhere. I mean, the prices here in California are like insane.
Right now, yeah. But so you guys were insane.
Not enough of us are leaving and going to Arizona.
You guys were insane, and we were that place of refuge.
Right. Yeah. It was very affordable.
Now our prices are almost on par with California. We haven't quite caught up with you yet. But right now, we're probably leading the nation as far as appreciation in the home prices and everything else. And I mean, the market, it's a seller's market right now. Landlords with rental properties, they're killing people. And I've noticed that the homeless population here, or houseless population, has exploded. The streets of Phoenix, it looks, identical to LA now. Wow. When you go to certain areas in LA, and I'm just like, how did this happen? I've been here 16 years, and over the last 18 months to 2 years, it's just blown up. As I see the prices going up, I'm seeing more people and more encampments out on the streets, and it's done by design, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure COVID played a huge part in that.
Oh, yeah.
With our government refusing to step in and help people, as other countries did. Other countries literally just paid their citizens to stay home, which is what we could have done here. When they can bail out the big banks, they can bail out citizens.
Right.
They literally just print the money anyway. So
out of thin air. Out of thin air.
The fact that they refuse to is, because of what you said. It keeps us enslaved. It keeps us in a position where we're desperate, where we're sick, where we're, just begging for any little scraps.
Yes, and those are some of the factors that I mentioned that tie right back into increased violence in inner cities and it perpetuates itself, and it's a self
Yeah,
serving
it's like a
monster in a
Mad
sense.
Max situation.
Exactly.
People are so desperate for basic resources.
Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna fall into, gangs to
Everybody
protect
has
them. They're
mm,
gonna take drastic measures because yeah, they literally don't have a roof over their head, food on the table.
everybody has that point, that ceiling, that boiling point almost. And when you reach there and the slightest little thing can happen, you're just gonna lose it. And of course,
look at the movie Trading Places.
exactly.
They proved it. They proved it in that movie.
Exactly.
Look at Lewis. Look at what happened to poor Lewis. Took everything away from him. And the next thing you know, he's wearing a pimp's fur coat. And he's robbing his old company on Christmas. Stuffing prime rib in his coat. Yep.
That's funny. Yeah, that movie did kind of really show. Now I'm gonna have to watch that again tonight. I haven't seen it in a few years. That's funny.
Billy Ray and Lewis.
Yes. Oh boy.
I have to laugh about stuff because this.
Oh yeah.
The news can be really, really horrible and just God, almost unbearable some days, especially with stories like this. So,
and that's why, for the most part, I try to avoid it. Honestly, it's just like it's this 30-minute, very monotone, just about everything that's wrong. Pretty much everything that's wrong in the world, and then weather and sports.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I know. So, but like I said, I thought that these were important stories to talk about so that we can really keep it in perspective that yes, okay, this is a fringe thing, this Q thing. Yes, the 20-25% of the country are these diehard MAGA supporters who reality doesn't exist for them anymore. But it is dangerous, and we need to be aware of it and not just laugh at it. We need to hold our representatives accountable for getting to the bottom of who's behind this stuff and putting an end to it, or at least exposing it, and who's behind it, so that it will lose some of the traction that it's built up. Because all the people who thought this was fizzling out, I heard a lot of people, even progressives, after Trump lost and then after he wasn't reinstated, and I think it was April, and they said the real inauguration date was going to be, people thought, oh, it's dying off and there's not as many people buying into it anymore. No, as long as they keep this stop the steal stuff going, as long as they keep these fraudits like what's going on in Arizona going, this stuff isn't going to die off. It's, they make up all kinds of fake facts and people are buying into it still. So,
well, they have to keep it going, at least through 2023 until, the next election cycle, because you let it die down, out of sight, out of mind. Just like the old saying goes. So to keep their demagogue relevant, you have to keep fanning flames and coming up with new stories to support your guy.
Even more nefarious than that is what I talked about on one of yesterday's shows, is that they have to keep these stories going because it serves as a justification for the way that they're going to gerrymander the maps coming up, electoral maps. And then also, they're not the electoral, but the, the district maps. And also it serves as a justification for all of these ridiculous voting restriction laws that they're putting in place. So if they don't continue with the lie that the election was stolen, if they don't keep people in fear with the QAnon lunacy, then they can't justify any of those illegal actions. Well, I guess technically gerrymandering the maps is not even illegal, which is sad, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, and as long as Kirsten Sinema from out in your neck of the woods and Joe Manchin refused to abolish that ridiculous filibuster rule, there's nothing that we can do about it. Unfortunately, we're now at the mercy of those two senators and others like them who don't see this for what it is. Either they don't see it for what it is, or they just don't give a damn.
Oddly enough, fun fact here, Cinema, I do believe she's vegan or definitely plant-based. A friend of mine owns a restaurant here. He's actually, close with her, and she frequents his restaurant. And I believe she is vegan or highly plant-based. So fun fact
which is like why I tell people, don't be excited because, oh, we got a woman in. Don't be excited because it's a person of color. Don't be excited because it's an LGBTQ person. Don't be excited that they're just vegan. They can still be shit people. That's all identity politics.
Right.
Tell me who you are and what you stand for.
Right. All those little labels don't mean a damn thing.
No, I mean, look at some of the people on the right who are horrible people. Candace Owens, for example, would you elect her to be vice president?
She just goes with whatever is happening, who's writing the biggest check.
Because she's a grifter.
Yeah, if you look in her history and do just a little bit of research on her, you'll see that she was begging the NAACP to support her against some white guys that were attacking her just a few years ago. Yep. And she, if you look at some of her earlier videos, she was so outspoken anti-Trump. And I think they saw that she had the right complexion and was somewhat intelligent, and they wrote her a bigger check, and overnight she was, did a 180. So I wouldn't take anything she says serious at all.
No. But it's a perfect example of, oh, well, we need a woman of color. We got to elect a woman of color. I don't care if it's a woman of color. I don't care if it's a white man who's as white as a bed sheet. If you are going to do things for the people, I don't care. I don't care if you're from Mars and you're green. If you want to help the people, then you are the person that I will get behind and support. But yeah, that's a problem on the left that I see with liberals, is that, oh, we got to have this color and that nationality. And, oh, I'm so excited about this person because they fit the mold and we have to have diversity. Diversity is awesome. I mean, it gives so much hope to younger people of what they can achieve, who they can be when they grow up. I love that. But that's not all that you need to pay attention to, or all that you should be paying attention to. So Kirsten Sinema is a perfect example. Everybody's like, oh, first bisexual woman, blah, blah, blah. It's like, great. She's a shit person who does shit things.
I think in most cases, or in some cases, some of the rare, maybe it's more the exception rather than the rule. Most people enter the political arena with the best of intentions, and they think they're that person that's for the people. And by the time the lobbyists and the game of politics gets a hold of them, they figure they have to choose a side. I think that's just the way it goes. If you want to play the game, these are the rules. And it's nobody that's gotten in there at all, in my opinion, that's went against the grain. And if they do go too hard, usually they're gone. They're one-term wonder.
Only one person who has lasted and who has not taken the bait, who isn't like a, multi-billionaire and just swimming in dough like Pelosi and all of them, is Bernie Sanders. And they hate him. I will say that for it, because he will not budge off of his positions of, I'm going to do what's right for the people.
I will say that.
You're not going to pay me off. You're not going to buy me out. I'm not going to sell out my morals. I'm not going to say something that I don't believe in. He was pro LGBTQ before it was fashionable. He was pro
fashionable. I like that.
pro Black and brown people before it was politically savvy to be, to kneel with your kente cloth. Yeah, he doesn't play the game, and they don't like him because of it.
Yeah,
he will not sell out.
That's funny. You just brought up the kente cloth. I saw some of the comments on one of the videos from the other day, and somebody was like, "What's that flag on the wall behind him?" And another person in the comments gave him a little education on it. And I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't have to chime in on that." That was great. But yeah, there is too much of the identity politics going on with all these labels, and especially like you said, the Democrats, they want to install people that have to fit a certain mold of what's hot right now. Like you say, what's trending, what's hip, what's popular. And as you mentioned about Bernie, he was about those things long before they became fashionable, as you put it. And that's something, to hang your hat on. But I often wonder, I don't have any proof of it, but I'm like, there's got to be somebody behind him doing something. He's got to be getting kickbacks or something. I'm like, because he's lasted too long. That's my only thing. It's like, how do you get through it? Because usually anybody who comes in and they go against the grain, they're gone.
Yeah, but that's what I think the ruling class, that's what I think the establishment doesn't understand, is that if you don't sell out, if you don't take big dollar donations, if you don't allow big pharma and big oil and everybody else to buy you out, and you stick to your principles, whether people agree with you 100% of the time or not, but if you're truly in there for the right reasons and you stick to those principles, the people will come out to support you. I mean, he had the most small dollar donors of anyone who's ever run for political office, I believe it was. It was insane how much money he was able to raise off of just small dollar donations with no big super PACs whatsoever. Right. And for some reason, they're like, oh, no, that's just too hard. I'm just going to do it the way everybody else. I think they get in there. And I think it's a couple of things. I think that they are surrounded by all of the same mindset. They get to be part of this group think, and they don't associate with the common folk anymore. So they lose touch with what their constituents want and why they sent them there to begin with. And then I think that they also get in this mindset of, oh, well, I'm just one person, and what can I really do?
Yes.
And so if you can't beat them, join them.
Yep. And you just have to reflect, like you mentioned, how Bernie was able to get so many small dollar donors. You have to think of the people that put you there, as opposed to playing the game and sitting in the room with your constituents and just seeing how it's done behind closed doors, because you're exposed to so much corruption. Yeah. I think your morals just vanish instantly. It seems like, and that's what it seems like in most cases. And the ones who don't, like I say, they don't last. I don't know how Bernie has been able to pull it off, but kudos to him, and hopefully there'll be more like him following suit. I know a few of the other progressives. They haven't been around long enough when there's been this big shift starting to happen. So I'll stay tuned and see what happens with them in the long term. If they just become this lifelong talker, but no action and just holding office. So it's gonna be interesting to watch, the AOCs of the world and some few others.
Yeah. The one I'm really impressed with right now is Cori Bush, because she literally saved God knows how many people throughout the country by camping out on the steps of the Capitol and saying, I'm not going on vacation. I'm not going anywhere until you put this eviction moratorium back into place.
Yeah.
And the Biden administration, Pelosi kept pointing the finger back and forth. Oh, we can't do it. Oh, the Supreme Court said, blah, blah, blah. They had all these excuses. What do you know? When she got the public support on her side and she got attention from national media about it, all of a sudden, oh, wow, we can do something. I mean, it was temporary, but it at least bought them some time to try to put a more permanent fix into place. And it shined the spotlight on it. but and it gave them time to get the money out to renters.
Yeah.
To get the money in the hands of the people, because that was one of the real issues, was that the federal government allocated money to these states. States didn't know how to get the money in the hands of the people. So it was literally just sitting there wasting.
Yeah.
So, she bought people time. I mean, unfortunately, in that short gap, I'm sure there were still people who were evicted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
definitely.
she saved a lot.
Yeah.
And, and it's because she knew why she was there. She was once homeless. She lived in her car with her children. She knows that pain. We need more people like that in office, not these assholes who went to Harvard, who had golden spoons in their mouth from the time they were born, who've never known a day of suffering.
Grandfather has been in politics the last 50 years. Exactly. So you just
all these legacy
the legacies. Yes.
Who don't know what it's like to struggle. Who don't know what it's like to not know how you're going to pay the bills and keep a roof over your head the next month. We're so far away from actual public servants. It's sickening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go ahead and jump on the bandwagon. Corey Bush from St. Louis. I'm from the east side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Same thing. East St. Louis. We all roll together.
Yeah, I love her. I think she's awesome. I think that the progressives needs to start flexing their muscle more, because they hold a lot more power in the House right now than they think they do.
She broke up one of those legacies in Missouri. She broke one up. I forget the guy's name, but she
long-time Democrat. Yeah. More like her, less like Pelosi and Schumer and all these others.
It's time for them to go. I mean, it's just that old blood. I mean, I don't discriminate on the AARP class, but it's time for them to go. You got to know when to let go.
Well, and I don't, like I said, I love Bernie, and he's just this, he's like the same age.
Yeah, is up there too.
But he hasn't lost sight of public service, of what that means. To serve the public, not yourself. So to me, it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with mindset, and it has to do, because I mean, look at some of the vegans we know that are, that are of that age or close to it, and they're killing it out there. But to me, it just is, we need more people who are of the people, by the people, for the people, not for me, mine, and, all for me, none for you.
All right. We'll see.
Yep. All right. Well, that was a very, I guess, wide conversation.
Oh, we went everywhere.
That we covered, but yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching and listening. Take care. We will talk with you soon. Please click on the link below to become a friend or a supporter of the show. As a friend of the show, you can hang out with us once a month. We can get to know you guys better, which we really want to do. So take care.